All right, it's just slightly after 7. We will go ahead and call the City Council Caucus meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda this evening is brought to us by the Small Business Task Force. There was an abatement ordinance that went out in the council packet that Sherry sent you guys. This came out of the Small Business Task Force. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca to give a little introduction of the ordinance. And then we also have our new Economic Development Director, Nick Eads, in the House, who will be able to give a little bit of a recommendation from his perspective.
Awesome, thank you. So this piece of legislation is something we are super proud of. This offers a property tax assessment moratorium to incentivize rehabilitation, repair, redevelopment of existing properties. It's inclusive of both residential and commercial properties, and this program allows property owners to freeze the city portion of their property tax assessment at the pre-improvement value for a period of 5 years. It's 5 years because we worked with Mr. Gatlin to establish what would be legally permissible in the Kentucky Constitution, and 5 years is the max, so that's what we set. For commercial properties, financial improvement must exceed 40% of the current assessed value. Residential properties would be 20% of the current assessed value. For the age of the property, commercial facilities, structures 20 years or older that are used for commercial business. Existing residential structures would be 25 years and must be used for one or more person. Demolition and rebuild would be a structure 25 years or older that can be demolished, and then it has to be, the rebuilding must begin within 12 months. On the second page of the ordinance, we have all of the eligible zoning districts that the task force recommended. It's not inclusive of the entire zoning governance, but these we felt were most appropriate for this program. From an application standpoint, the applications must be submitted to the city administrator or the delegate. We've got Mr. Eads here. I'm sure he will be involved in this process. Within 30 days prior to starting the restorative or repair or redevelopment effort. The construction window, the applicant has 2 years because Rome wasn't built in a day, and commercial properties have a lot of complexities. We know things happen throughout the process. So must be completed within 2 years. There's an extension opportunity of up to 2 years that can be granted, and the application itself will expire if no action is taken within 2 years. Once the work is finished, the owner notifies the city and an on-site inspection is performed to verify those improvements. So it's pretty straightforward. It's inclusive of residential and commercial property. It gives us the opportunity to see things improve throughout the city without needing to ask for any sort of appropriation. This is just simply freezing the rate that folks are paying, or excuse me, the dollar amount that folks are paying on a property for that period of time. So I can kick it to you, Mr. Eads, if you have anything you wanted to add, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a couple of questions, but I don't know if you want to go ahead before I ask, because you might answer some of them. Oh, okay. The only thing I was going to ask is, would it be possible for us to see those zones on a map of where they are in the city? Like, I feel like isn't there a way for us to see, like, I feel like before we've put up a map and seen where the zones were. I don't know, and that could be emailed to us. We don't necessarily have to see it on a screen, but just so we can kind of visualize, like, this is how much of the city could be impacted by this. And then the only other question I had is, if they don't take any action, so let's say they apply and they don't do anything, does that, I guess there's not really any way to retro backwards. I guess, would there be any consequence to them applying and then not doing it? Or would it basically it would expire and then you would get reassessed at the end of that expiration?
Yeah, so when the PVA does the reassessment, they would be part of that pool versus having their assessed value frozen. I mean, that would be the circumstance if it were to expire. With regard, I'm sure there's an overlay we can show. We did exclude a few, but it's a pretty robust list. So I feel like we could maybe either send that out or show it. Okay, yeah. But we did exclude a few that didn't make sense, but it's pretty inclusive of almost all of our zoning options. Any other questions?
I was just going to say thank you to Councilwoman Reckers and also to Jack and the entire Small Business Task Force. We're being recognized for how we invest into businesses in the city. So this is just one more reason for companies to come to the city. So thank you. That was it.
I'll add one more thing. With our economic development director, at the end of the fiscal year, which the new fiscal year starts in July, we typically do a retro. The Small Business Task Force meets and we go over what programs were utilized, what the trends were with those. We would add this to that portfolio and see just if we're getting applications, what they look like, and look for areas. I mean, so we're only going to have 6 months of data, but we can at least see if there's an opportunity to improve what we've crafted. So thank you guys. Yes.
I do have a question on that. It sounds like with increasing the property value, is there any kind of, I don't know, like gap? So it sounds almost like we're gentrifying and that we don't want to increase the property value of the people that didn't do the improvements. So that, is there a period of time in which those will not be used as comparative property value associations? Yeah, but I mean, if the people that's improving the value of their property is getting 5 years, the people next to them should also seem to get a gap between their value going up if they have not put any value into it. So that we don't
I mean, this ordinance doesn't contemplate that. So your thought is if, I guess, your neighbor does a major renovation to their house, which improves your property value, you would want to extend this benefit to neighbors?
So with gentrification, what happens is property value goes up because of repairs.
Yeah.
And then the people that did not do anything to their property also goes up in value. And I don't want to create a situation in which our residents can no longer afford to live here.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't been contemplated in this ordinance. I don't know if that's something council wants to discuss or.
I mean, we evaluated about 10 programs in the state, and none of them really spoke to, I mean, we know that the reassessment is required by statute for the PBA's office every 4 years. It wasn't taken into consideration, I don't think, in any of the programs that we looked at. So, I mean, with the residential being 20%, if a property is valued at $100,000 and they put $20,000 into it, it's, I mean, how much is that going to typically raise your neighbor's property value, right? It's. I think that it's open to be nominal enough to where I don't think that, I think that maybe once we see who's applying and the volume of interested parties, that we could see if there was going to be something more of like an issue from a systemic standpoint, but I don't, like I said, we didn't see anything built into any of the comparative legislative items.
And I know what, I mean, I'm well aware of what you're talking about. A long time ago, I used to be involved in a real estate cooperative in the west end of Cincinnati, and you got serious gentrification going there, right? So you've got dilapidated homes that maybe were worth $20,000, $30,000, and now you've got $500,000-$600,000 homes that are going in there and creating a huge tax burden for those folks. I don't think we have, I am no expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't know if we have quite as significant of issues here in Erlanger where you're going to see that radical of change that quickly.
Just as, I mean, if this is covering several zoning areas, just as long as it's not the plan to do that, because I don't want that to be something that's just quickly snuck in on us.
The initial intent was for around commercial, and one of the examples that was brought to the Small Business Task Force had residential, and we thought we could add it in and start it at 20%. It could be simple exterior facade improvements that are just going to improve the aesthetic of the neighborhood. So it adds opportunity without, the primary focus was truly around commercial, but we added it as additional criteria that we could look at. So I think that it could be interesting to look and see where we are in 6 months and who's utilizing it, and go from there.
I believe there is a way through the PVA to challenge that, though, too, if your property value is too high. So I think there is a mechanism in there. I'm not saying it's an easy mechanism. I'm not saying it's a clear mechanism, but I believe that the county does have that available. So if there runs into that.
I'll just comment only because I went through the process myself a couple years ago where all of Erlanger was reassessed, but my whole neighborhood was kind of in that situation where, people bought at a certain amount and then everybody's went way up. And I went through the process. I won't say it was an easy process, but it also wasn't super complicated. And mine got lowered about half of what I requested, which is kind of what I was expecting. So, for the most part, if you can find a decent realtor who's willing to give you comparables, which most realtors are, that's what you really need to do the process. And it's not super complicated. So there is a mechanism in place for that appeal process, and it's really not super complicated. So.
All right, seeing no more comments. So from what I'm gathering, there's support for this ordinance. So we will go ahead and move forward with the first reading on the February council meeting. Okay? All right. Next item on our agenda is the on-street parking and abandoned vehicle review. There were two different requesters for this information. Jennifer and Tyson brought this to us about the 24-hour on-street parking limit. I do have a recommendation from Chief Fleming, but I didn't know if you guys wanted to talk about it prior to me giving his recommendation. It's a very simple recommendation, if you can imagine. Do you guys want to talk about it first, or do you want me to give you his recommendation?
I would just maybe read us the recommendation, and then we can ask questions after that, depending on what it is, if it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so he reviewed, the police department recommends maintaining the existing 24-hour parking limit and not extending it more than either 48 hours or 72. So they said this is not typically an issue that they encounter. This seems to be more of like a one-off kind of situation. So the 24-hour standard promotes parking turnover, supports access for residents and businesses, and prevents long-term vehicle storage on public streets. It also improves street maintenance, snow removal, and emergency access. From an enforcement standpoint, the current policy is clear, consistent, and easy to administer. The department reports no history of negative feedback related to the 24-hour limit until this most recent situation. So the police department supports granting additional time on a case-by-case basis when special circumstances are brought to their attention. So if somebody is going out on vacation, if they just give the police a call like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week or I'm 2 weeks or whatever, they accommodate those requests all the time. A special area check is not a bad idea when you're going on vacation anyways. So from their standpoint, this does not seem like a huge issue, but Chief Fleming was not all that concerned if you guys wanted to increase it to 48 or 72. Yes.
How would one notify the police? They call non-emergency?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 727-2424. Yeah.
So similar, because I know you mentioned the vacation, kind of checks. I feel like that makes sense to make that the mechanism for reporting it. You're letting the police know, hey, we're going to be on vacation. Can you check on our house? Oh, also, we're going to leave our car parked on the street. And or there's another reason that we have to leave our car on the street, for whatever reason that is. My question was basically, was this a one-off situation, or is this a reoccurring issue? And I kind of felt like maybe it wasn't a reoccurring issue, but I also didn't want to make that assumption. There was something else I was going to say, sorry.
Yeah, one of the things that I asked Chief about was, are you guys being used as like a weapon when there's a neighbor dispute? And he's like, this is a one-off. This is not a normal thing that happens.
Do you mind to share what the process is, just for all of our benefit, when they do get a call?
When they come in.
So when somebody calls non-emergency dispatch and says, hey, there's been a car in front of my house or on my street or whatever for more than 24 hours, what happens then?
I can answer some of that. So this is all reported by the complainants. So that's how this generates. So this is not police looking to say what's happening here. So this is all generated that way. In this case, without getting into too many of the details, it was called by a neighbor. There was some damage to the vehicle. The tire was flat. So we gave a courtesy heads up. We actually extended that a little bit more. The party that brought this up to council previously did note that he even saw the courtesy ticket on there and just didn't get to it in time. So I think it was a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of, to Mayor's point, an outlier situation. So this is completely third-party complaint driven by the residents.
So basically a courtesy notice is put on there and then they're given 24 hours?
Typically, they'll check back in with 24
Okay.
hours, and, they even go up to the door, knock.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like we're going out. I guess I want everybody to understand, we're not going out and assuming that it has been there 24 hours
No,
already.
absolutely not.
And then automatically towing it. They're
No.
getting a courtesy notice, they're given given ample time to move their car, and somebody's knocking on the door and, okay.
Yeah.
So I feel
Kind
like
of a
for
last
everybody's
resort.
benefit and the residents, people need to understand that we're not actively out trying to tow cars.
Yeah, it's definitely a last resort. Yes.
I will mention, I've heard part of the process being putting a penny on the wheel. So like if someone just parks in the same spot all the time, if the penny moves and it's not on top of the wheel, the car has moved. So they usually will check that before they ticket it as well. And one of the reasons for doing it is for like stolen cars get ditched on sides of roads. So it is a crime deterrent to
As
make
far
sure that
as
they're
the
moved.
penny, we aren't allowed to do that.
There's Fourth Amendment implications on
I think that's
that.
like an old thing that they used to do. I don't know how many years ago that was
So how
done
do
away
they
with.
know if it's been moved then?
They are checking in on it. They're being consistent in their review of the property. Yeah, because they're not allowed to do any kind of line or anything. They cannot touch.
So from a practical matter, I don't think Erlanger's ever had one of these in front of, because it's a different process in Erlanger, but in other cities where they'll do it as a code violation, what you see at the code enforcement hearing is just a photograph, honestly. They'll take a photograph of the wheel with some sort of marking on the curb or marking on the street, a stone or something, where then there'll be a photograph the next day. At least that's how code enforcement does it. My gut is I don't know what the numbers are. I'm guessing police are towing very, very infrequently. Like, I just don't think, I don't think it's happening a lot. So I don't know if they have a real formal way of making sure it's there 24 hours. I think the conversations that I had with Director Rader, did I get his title right? And Chief, I'm sorry? Director of Public Safety Rader and Chief Lemming is like, it takes a little effort to get towed in Erlanger. So, and I don't mean that like encouraging people to illegally park. I'm just like, I think they're going out of their way to give people the benefit of the doubt to move a vehicle.
Yeah, one of the things we also talked about was they want to be able to remove disabled vehicles off of the expressway. So being able to have it be 24 hours or something within 24, 48, 72 to be able to tow off the expressway is important. Yeah.
So if somebody does follow the steps, calls in the police department, the non-emergency line, where is that notated at?
I'm sure it would be in our CAD system that, all of our officers have access to when they're on shift. So they check all of those things. They usually do check in on shift every day, and I'm sure it would be captured there.
Yeah, I think along with the idea of people weaponizing the PD on this, I also, we wanted to try to make some changes to this to try to reduce the accusations that the city or the PD might get for not including or not enforcing the laws that we already have. And I do understand the 24 hours, especially with the interstate. So I think that a modification to this ordinance would start with, qualifying the roads, the road type. So maybe we keep it at 24 hours for the interstate. But then once you get down, and I don't know if we want to go so far as trying to classify all of our roads in accordance with like KDOT. But, I think most of what we're talking about and concerned with would be the local roads, or what they call local roads, which is going to be most of or pretty much all of our subdivisions. I think there, it would probably make more sense to increase the time. I think 48 hours would be okay. I think 72 would probably be better. But then I think I would also add the stipulation that we don't tow on the weekends or on holidays, because we do end up getting people, who might be, I know my kids will come home on the weekends or for holidays, and sometimes that car might be parked, for 3 days over a long weekend, especially like just over this most recent Martin Luther King Day weekend. Of course, it wouldn't be valid with snow or snow emergencies. That I think I don't know if we need to make a point of that, but
I think our snow emergency ordinance already
that overrides it. Yeah. So
We go by Kenton County. They trump ours. Yeah. So anytime Kenton County has a snow emergency, it qualifies for us. We just don't enforce it because the county, we go by the county.
yeah, I think that encompasses everything that I was thinking on this.
Okay, so you were wanting to alter the city streets to 72 hours and then to not tow on weekends or holidays. Yes.
I think my concern with that would be selective enforcement. So what constitutes a weekend? When does the clock start, right? So if the effort is to truly not get to the point where we're towing, I do feel like this, based on what we've been told, this is more of an isolated situation. And I don't know if adding complexity is going to be the best thing for PD. They're so busy. Like, I don't know if saying, well, this is this type of street, or this is residential, or is this vehicle considered disabled? Like, I feel like it's unnecessarily complicating the ordinance. I don't know, that's just my 2 cents.
I was just going to say, we kind of already talked about the fact that we have a mechanism in place to let PD know if somebody is going to be parked there longer. So if there's a situation like it's a long weekend or a holiday or, whatever, there's a mechanism in place to say, hey, this car's going to be there longer than 24 hours, just FYI, and this is why. It's not disabled, it's not, so I guess I'm looking at this thinking, I don't know that we need to extend it because we have a workaround for the 24-hour time period if necessary. And I'm with Ms. Reckers, I don't see the point in creating more work for PD by classifying streets and, saying it's not on the weekends and not on holidays, but it is on these days. And, I feel like let them do their jobs that they already have, and we have a mechanism if there's an issue with it to let PD know.
I agree with both of your comments. I don't think we need to make this more complex for the police department. They do a phenomenal job, and I agree. If someone's going on vacation, why not just call the non-emergency number and do a vacation check as well? And they'll be happy to do that, I'm sure. But distinguishing weekends and holidays and federal holidays and this and that, I think that they've got a lot of things to do besides sorting that out. So I'm in agreement. Let's keep it simple.
The problem with what the three of you are saying is that that all existed before. Why didn't Mr. Raleigh know about that? That he could have called and done that and avoided his car getting towed. But he didn't know about this. The city does nothing to advertise that or talk about it. And I think that is probably more work to get that word out than to making a simple change to an ordinance that's already in existence. People can look up the ordinances. If they want to make a complaint, it's easy for someone to look up what the city ordinances are. And my intention would be that we probably do one or the other. Either increase it to 48 hours for local streets. And again, I'm just trying to distinguish interstate. We don't want to let someone go for 48 or 72 hours on the interstate. It's extremely dangerous. We need to move those cars off the interstate as fast as we can. It's more important to make that making that distinguished, because it's really just the suburban, local, neighborhood roads that we're talking about, trying to give them a little bit more time to making it clear that we're not trying to weaponize the PD. We're not trying to ignore the laws that we already have in place, but rather giving people adequate time and adequate notice so that this doesn't happen again. I get it. It was a one-off, but we still got accused. And I want to try to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
So I agree that it should stay at the 24, just because in subdivisions like back at Lloyd Manor, they have a lot of off-street parking, and if people block it up with cars that they don't move, then no one can stop and visit at the houses. And in particular cases, if people go on vacation, they may leave the car on the street instead of putting it in their own driveway. If we have it registered that they're on vacation and they have an empty driveway they could have put it in, and they chose to leave it on the street, then they should be held accountable for that, because nobody was able to park there that entire time they were gone.
But in this scenario, even if they call and let us know, we're not going to do anything about it. It's a public street, and if they're letting us know in the fashion that we have expressed is okay, then there's still no issue.
But why wouldn't there be if they have a large driveway?
It doesn't make a difference.
I mean,
If we're saying that what makes this okay is that them calling in and letting us know that they're going out of town makes it okay for them to park on the street, then it doesn't matter whether they have a big, giant driveway or not.
But I would argue that the essence of the ordinance, when it was written at the time, was for the use of the other residents so they could park their vehicles as necessary, not to necessarily use it as long-term parking.
Mark, can you read the description of the vehicle again that was the situation in question? Because I don't think everybody heard that, and I don't think this is a car we would have made an exception for anyway, nor do we want these vehicles parked on streets in the first place. It was, go ahead.
Yeah. So the third-party complaint came in about an abandoned vehicle that was, quote, crashed and hasn't moved, that was reported by the complainant. It was the vehicle that had rear damage and a flat tire. And they knocked and left a courtesy notice on that same day. Same caller, same complainant came in again, complaining that the vehicle had not been moved for a month now. That is their narrative. We placed an orange sticker on the vehicle for overtime parking. And then 1 week later, after the original call came in, we followed up with a parking issue, found that the vehicle had still not been moved, the orange sticker was still on the rear windshield, and the right tire was still flat. So at that point, the vehicle was impounded. 5 hours after, the owner of the vehicle called and said he admitted that he had observed the orange sticker on the vehicle the day prior, acknowledged the vehicle had mechanical issues, and that's kind of where that process was. So it was in a state of disrepair. It looked to be wrecked, and there was a flat tire there.
So this is a vehicle that should have been moved off the street. And he said, this is a one-off situation, and I don't think we need to change our laws because of one situation where he admitted he should have moved the car. He admitted he saw the courtesy notice, and it was a wrecked car and had a flat tire. So I'm pretty sure we wouldn't even allow that car to be parked in your driveway. Doesn't your car, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't allow a car to be parked in the driveway with a flat tire that long. Am I correct on that? So we wouldn't, I mean, this is not even an issue where it wouldn't have been allowed on the street, but it wouldn't even been allowed in his driveway very long because we don't want people parking those cars in their driveway. So I don't think we need to make a change. This was a one-off situation that I don't think, yeah, he accused us of something, but it wasn't true, in my opinion, based on what we're being told.
So what do we want to do from here? Are we, because I mean, do we want to agree with Chief Limming, or do we want to make a change? Do we want to do a straw vote? Like, how do we want to move forward with this one?
So I'll just reiterate. After review, the police department recommends maintaining the existing 24-hour parking limit and not extending it to anything beyond 48 or 72. That's, he said 48 or 72, it's fine, or keep it as is, it's fine. But he didn't want it to go beyond 72 hours. He didn't want us to do like a week. So.
We did a week though, right?
What is it?
We did a week before we towed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're trying to be neighborly and, okay.
So, yep.
I would request to work with Mr. Gatlin, or if City Council doesn't want that, then I would like to draft an ordinance that we can talk about at the next meeting, or a modification to the ordinance, and ultimately, I would like to bring it to council for a vote.
Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is the speed bump analysis and review. You guys all received a copy of the updated speed humps and traffic calming, a literature review provided to you by Kevin Quinn. He has cited his sources in the back, and he actually reached out to the city of Edgewood to try and understand from their perspective, how are the speed bumps, and they have like very selective streets that have the speed bumps, and They had mixed reviews. There's a lot of instances where teenagers are intentionally speeding up to try and go as fast as they can over top of them. So there's a lot of neighbors that are not happy with the sound, the noise, the issues that come along with that. And then they also have experienced racing in between speed bumps. So the acceleration, they go over the speed bump slowly, then accelerate to the next speed bump, slow down. So it does slow when you're going over the speed bump, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be a consistent slowdown of the traffic. So if you guys want to go ahead and review the documents that were handed out to you earlier, the advantages, it does reduce the speed. It's an effective deterrent for excessive speeders, has been seen to reduce pedestrian injuries, creates a visual impression, so there's self-enforcement. People are automatically going to see it and they're going to slow down. And it does not lose efficacy over time. So it works as well on day 1 as it does in day 100. But the disadvantages, so it's expensive to install and maintain. It does slow emergency response times down by 10 seconds per speed bump. It is also documented that it reduces property values of the houses that it's around. It increases the noise levels and the wear on the vehicles. Removal is costly if we do decide that it's not for us any longer. Believe it or not, there were studies that showed that it increases air pollution. From the acceleration. And then reduces fuel efficiency and increased fuel consumption and possibility of injury liability claims. So there's an analysis, and then he cited the sources in the very back page. So the city has received increased requests for traffic calming measures, particularly speed humps. Public Works reviewed federal guidance, academic studies, and peer city experiences, which includes the city of Edgewood's feedback that I talked about earlier. While speed humps can reduce vehicle speeds and are visually self-enforcing, they come with significant drawbacks, like I have already discussed. So Public Works is continuing with the recommendation of not recommending speed bumps, and to continue to evaluate alternative traffic calming strategies that balance safety, cost, and emergency response needs. So one of the traffic calming changes to our roadway that you guys are all probably very familiar with is Sherborne, right by the park. So bringing that street closer together, reducing the width has actually created a calmer presence for that park, which is really what we wanted to do, make sure that people understood that they were entering a park area where kids could potentially dart out into the street. So that is one example of traffic calming in a different way other than a speed bump. I'll open it up for you guys to discuss. Anybody? Yeah.
Only thing I wanted to add, a couple of things. I will concur that I do think it has helped in Sherborne. I live there, so I see it, and I think it's helped. I think people hated it when it first went in, and I really don't think it's been that big of a deal. When it first went in, everybody was like, oh, trucks aren't going to be able to go by. I'd love to see an ambulance or a fire truck go by. And I literally ended up behind an ambulance one day right there, and it got through just fine. So not an issue. The other thing I will say is that's not on the advantages or disadvantages, but my own perception. In my house, we have 2 SUVs and 2 Honda Civics. The Honda Civics go very low to the ground, and they feel every single pothole and speed bump there is. My stepson and my son complain all the time about this pothole and that pothole. My husband and I rarely ever notice those. because we drive SUVs and our cars just don't feel them the same way or hit them the same way that a car low to the ground. So my point is, I think different cars experience different things based on a speed bump. Some people aren't really even going to need to slow down for them, whereas other cars will. So I don't think that it even impacts every car the same way. It might slow down some, but it may not slow down others. So that's the only thing I wanted to mention about that. It's not documented, that's just my personal opinion and observation. I was not aware of the increase in pollution, so that's interesting, and the reduced fuel efficiency. I do think it's important to note that it reduces property value, or that they can possibly reduce property values. I feel like in Edgewood, people go around them, like they purposefully go on streets that don't have them because they don't want to deal with it. So it doesn't, yes, in theory, it does reduce speeding, but people are still going to speed.
We had our very own testimony, firsthand testimony of Nick Eads, who used to live in Edgewood, right out in front of the speed bump. So we got to hear a firsthand experience of the noise and the kids trying to launch the cars. And
Car was totaled in 2007 because someone launched all this.
yeah, I mean, it's just things that you never even think about. Other questions, concerns? Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to say a big thank you to Kevin Quinn for putting this together for us. That was very nice. I think it's
Don't
very
you love the title?
Very thorough. Yes.
Literature review. All right. Yeah, oh, yes.
There was something, I believe, one of the officers mentioned it to me. It wasn't speed bumps that actually reduced the speed, but if you've been on Dudley in front of the school, there's actually a sign that tells you your speed. Now, some people might take that as a challenge, but I think the studies say that they actually look at that and go, oh, I should slow down. And I believe, I don't know when that study came out, maybe they could look into that, but that might be something we could look at in these high-speed areas, just to say, hey, look how fast you're going, have the kids present, things like that. But
To like leave them there permanently, is that what you mean?
Yeah, they're there.
Yeah,
that's
because
there.
we have like 3 of those, and we had bounced them around to do the traffic studies. But now we've gone to a more stealth traffic study, because we were noticing that once they saw the sign, they did slow down.
Correct. And I think that's what the studies say too. It's like, is somebody watching me? I'm going to slow down. Oh, I am speeding, I should slow down. Or it could be, hey, I want to see how fast I can go. But it's still, at least you get 2/3 of the people then slow down.
Yeah. Do you have locations that you would want us to like really be hyper-focused on for these types of permanent signs?
I think narrows, we might want to look at that as we're going to make these changes.
Yeah.
Just to see, and maybe use the stealth one to determine if that's a good location. And these guys probably already know where those places are.
Yeah, and I'm happy to team up with you guys and put a list together, a collaborative list.
Okay.
Yeah, narrow it. I mean, I'm already coming up with a couple off the top of my head that might.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add Concord to that list, because that's kind of how this all started.
Okay. Do you have a street number or a house number? Because I know it's a particular
Yes, but
resident
not
that
off the top
is.
of my head.
Okay, but can you get that
Yeah.
for me, please? Thanks. Yes.
I was just wanting to add to the list to Riggs Avenue before it gets up to Halbert, that bend before it gets up to Kenton Lands. There's a lot of speeding back there too, and it might already be on the police list.
Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to say is I'd much rather see us invest money in the flashing signs than in speed bumps, because they could be, in theory, moved around if they needed to be. But the only other, well, maybe a couple of streets I would add, Sunset Avenue. I feel like we get a lot of complaints about around the schools. So Sunset's obviously one of those. Arnett's and Ellesmere. There's not a whole lot of places probably around Lloyd or Tishner, maybe on Graves, some places, but not as much.
I never hear about speeding issues on Graves, believe it or not. Like, it's just not.
I think it's
hear
not,
about it on
it's not as much speeding as it is people passing cars that are waiting, like for kids to get out, or passing buses and things like that. So probably not as much speeding.
Holbert is definitely one.
Yeah,
that
Holbert
needs-
is one we've gotten a lot of complaints about over the years, too. Sunset's probably one that I've gotten complaints about for a very long time. I think Concord, Jacqueline, so those, but I would defer to the police on where their high number of tickets are, because they're going to be the ones that know more than we do.
Yeah, and Kevin has done a really good job of gathering, like moving our more stealth radar around the city. So taking a look at his data to see, like, are there streets that we're missing that have issues, or maybe some of these don't really have issues once they've been analyzed. So, all right, cool. Anything else on that topic? Okay, task force reviews.
Insurance premium tax, I think, was first. I had that.
Oh, you do have it mixed up. Okay, sorry. Okay, so insurance premium tax. So this was really interesting information or data to get from Kara. So in our previous discussions of the insurance premium tax rate reduction, 0.25%, so we've gone from 10 down to 9.75, down to 9.5%, which is where we sit right now. It used to be, back in 2018, we used to calculate based on the revenues that we would bring in for the insurance premium tax. 0.25% would equal around $70,000 of a fluctuation in your revenues. Because of the increases in people's premiums over the course of time, 2025, our new number for 0.25% is $142,522 of a reduction. Yeah. So when you're looking at going from 9.5 to 9.25, that is a reduction of $142,000. So if you wanted to drop to 9%, that's $285,044. Down to 8.75 is $427,567. And it keeps going from there. After talking with Kara, and you all know Kara very well, and how closely she watches these things, closely she watches our revenues, and as we're going into budget conversations, and it's a funky time. Unfortunately, I wish the insurance premium tax rate change was more consistent with like when we were actually doing the budget, because right now, her recommendation, my recommendation is that we don't make a change currently, but we build in to this next budget cycle a reduction in our revenue to drop it to 9.25%, which would be $142,522 reduction within our revenues. And then we build it into our entire process. So we've just now started having, revenue projection conversations and appropriations conversations. So we're so in the beginning of our budget process. As you guys know, you guys have been doing this for a while now. We don't get into the meat and potatoes of our budget until about March or April. So it is this administration's recommendation that we don't make any change for this March, but we budget for a reduction to 9.25% in the next fiscal year. So then January or whenever, it just needs to be in by March of '27. That would make Kara very comfortable, and she knows that it can be accommodated without it being budgeted for appropriately, with it being, 142,000 versus the 70 that we anticipated it being. It makes her a little, wanting to be more proactive versus doing it in reactive state. Yes.
Are you ready for a comment or not?
Oh, sure,
Okay.
sure. Go ahead.
So I see Kara's perspective, and I don't disagree with it. However, this council may not be the council next year.
Okay.
And I think, I'm not saying they won't be, I'm just saying they might not be. So it's kind of hard. Yes, we can definitely budget for it, but the next council, the next mayor may not agree with that. So my suggestion would be that we start doing this in the first year of a council's term instead of after the council has. If we're going to do this, if we're going to try to do this on a regular basis, it needs to be done. It should have been done last year. We should have been planning for it last year during the budget so we could pass it now. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it would have been the same people who were agreeing to it. Now we're saying, yeah, that's what we want to do, and we hope that the next group does it, but we can't count on that. Mm-hmm. So that's my only issue. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I'm going to give my speech that I've given before about insurance premium taxes and who it affects. So I wholeheartedly support reducing insurance premium taxes. I have long called this a hidden tax because most people just don't notice it until it increases or decreases, or until they move to Kentucky from a state that doesn't impose taxes on insurance premiums, Ohio. These taxes are paid by just about everyone who purchases insurance, including car owners, property owners, renters, and businesses. As many of you already know, we have a large number of rental properties in Erlanger. These renters don't directly pay property taxes, so they aren't directly impacted by a reduction in our property tax rates, which we cheer every year because we reduce property taxes, and that doesn't affect everybody. This does. This affects every single taxpayer in Erlanger. Property taxes do not. When we reduce property taxes, nobody gets a rebate on their rent. Nobody gets that money back. The landlord's not going in and saying, I'm going to make your rent less because Erlanger reduced my property taxes. So that is my argument with this. It is a tax that every single person pays, and yet every year we talk about property taxes, and we don't talk about this. So we're only decreasing it a very small amount. Sorry, I lost my spot. I just want to talk about how our residents are being hit on every side by increases, and it's a time when they desperately need money back in their pockets. Food prices are up 24% in the last 4 years. Utilities have increased in cost 25 to 30% in the last 4 years. The other thing I want to point out, and I pointed this out before, is that insurance premium taxes, the state allows the imposition of a collection fee by insurance companies just for collecting this tax on our behalf. Most people don't even realize it's happening because it's not broken out in your insurance. But KRS 91A.0804 allows, quote, a reasonable collection fee to be retained by the insurance company or its agents as compensation for collecting the tax, except that collection fee shall be no more than 15% of the fee or tax collected and remitted to the local government, or 2% of the premium subject to the tax, whichever is left. So that's money that our residents are literally paying that we're not even getting. So that's another reason why I'm so passionate about reducing this particular tax, because it literally affects everyone. for context, I looked at my own insurance bills today. My family paid almost $1,000 in insurance premium taxes just for Erlanger. This doesn't include the state and collection fees. That's $1,000. I feel like I'm probably a pretty average family in Erlanger, and that's a lot of money. And I realize that 0.25% isn't going to make a huge difference, but it definitely puts money back in their pockets when people desperately need it. So that's all I'm going to say. I feel like we really need to start having this conversation every single year, because this is something that I would love to see completely done away with. It is something that residents talk to me about. And we talk about property taxes all the time, and I just don't feel like we talk about this one enough.
I guess I just want to talk to that a little bit, because nobody's arguing with you. I think we've all been strong supporters of the reduction of the insurance premium tax rate, but doing it in small incremental steps that are allowable and can be accommodated for within our budget is extremely important. When we talk about property tax rate reduction, those can be as small, and I had this conversation in the department head meeting the other day. That could be $19,000 reduction in our revenues, whereas when you do 0.25%, it's $142,000. So it takes a different level of planning and preparation to make this type of an adjustment to the tax rate versus a small reduction in the property tax rate. So I guess I want to make sure that people understand the severity of the change and how different of a conversation it is, and that nobody's arguing that insurance premium tax rate, we've always been pro reduction. That's why it's gone down 2 times. And been a pretty significant reduction each time. Yep.
I agree, Mayor. And I agree that it is something that we should be paying attention to. But, we've got another avenue, too, that we can pay attention to, and maybe something that we should explore, and that is the franchise fee. That is also something that everybody pays, or that every single resident pays, whether they're a renter or a property owner. And it's the tax that's on our utilities. And again, it's another hidden tax that a lot of people don't even realize that they're paying. That is probably one that we've looked at it in the past with the possibility of abolishing the tax completely. And there have been times when we could have done that. But that is something, it's a 3% tax on utilities. That's something that we could probably make a larger cut that's going to affect everybody, but not impact our revenue as badly. So I think it is something that we should pay attention to.
Yeah, I guess I want to kind of step back in time and talk about that a little bit, because we did have an opportunity to abolish that tax rate. When we saw the increase with the PVA increasing our property values all across the city of Erlanger, we had seen such an increase in our assessed value that it gave us an opportunity to, while we were going to still take a tax rate reduction on the property taxes, by not taking it all the way down. If you guys remember, it was like an 11% reduction, and I was saying, hey, let's only reduce it, I can't remember the exact, it was like 4%, and then eliminate the franchise fee, because the revenues were going to work out to where we could eliminate that and really lean into the property value, the property tax rate instead of the franchise fee. And that was turned down. So we did have that opportunity. Yes.
Well, we'll go a little bit further back in history, but the franchise fee was initially implemented to pay for dispatch, and we no longer have dispatch. So I feel like there should, maybe we need to have a tax workshop or something and talk through the taxes and where there's opportunity, because I've been saying for years we should be sunsetting it. I hear what you're saying with regard to that opportunity. KRS said anything over Comp Plus 4 could result in a recall, and that's what would have happened. So we knew that Comp Plus 11 was not going to be a reality because
Even though it was still a property tax rate decrease, a significant one.
KRS
I understand.
is KRS. So, but I mean, it's something I think that we should truly look at sunsetting. As everyone here has stated, it is something that impacts every single utility bill, and it was initially intended to pay for dispatch. I mean, Tom, you were here, right? So you guys know when it was implemented, and there's an opportunity to wind that down. So maybe we could look at having a tax workshop and working through all of these scenarios for the future. I don't know. It's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, I've always been a strong supporter of holistic tax reform in the city of Erlanger. So it's just you do have to have those opportunities that present themselves. And, you know, the issue a couple of years ago, that was an opportunity to where we could have made some really big changes. And yes, I understand your point, but I think it might have been worth it because then we wouldn't have a franchise fee right now. So, okay, so what do you guys want to do on the insurance premium tax rate right now? Table, yes.
I say we plan for what Kara has suggested in the budget, but that is essentially tabling it until next year.
Okay, and doing the quarter of a percent reduction? Okay.
I would love to see estimates if we reduced it a quarter or half.
A half is 285.
Right, I'm just saying on the budget, like when we're talking about the budget, if there's a way to look at, I mean, I would love to reduce it 0.5%. And then either we do that every year, every 2 years, but we need to get on track. We need to get on a track of doing it. We need to talk about it 1 year and then do it the next during the same council term, so that the council who's agreeing to do it is doing it.
Yeah. Yes.
Could we put an item on the next month's caucus meeting agenda to look at what a franchise fee tax reduction would be?
Do you want to call it a tax workshop?
No.
Hold on 1 second. I just wanted to see if I had that handy. I do not. Yep, I'll get those numbers. Okay. All right. Next item is task force reviews. So we do periodic review of city task forces. We do that typically in January. I don't know if we did it last January, but let's see here. We want to assess the effectiveness, relevance, and alignment with current council priorities. This provides an opportunity to refine scopes, consolidate efforts, or sunset any that are no longer active. The intent of the task forces was to really not have like an ongoing. I think there's a few that have consistently been an ongoing, but really it was supposed to be more of a task-based, project-based gathering of council members and community members and staff members that come together to conquer a particular project, really focused around SMART goals. So being specific and measurable and actionable, realistic, and time-bound. And so that was the original intent of our task forces. So with that being said, is there any conversation about existing task forces or any future task forces? I'll just kind of open it up. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I would request to continue the Parks Planning Task Force. I think that has been successful, and it seems to be gaining popularity. More people seem to be attending those meetings and weighing in and collaborating, and staff is also interested in those meetings as well, and the things that are discussed and the outcomes of those. So I would like to continue that. I think I'd like to create a new task force. That would be the council size task force. I think a lot of people know that this has always been an issue of interest for me. Again, here I would like to try to get more, I'd like to get the public to weigh in more on it. And I think that would be a good avenue for people to get involved. I have another one here that I wrote it as, I edited the name of it, but I'll talk about both names. I started out by saying modifying or eliminating unnecessary funds task force. It started out as being eliminating the resiliency fund task force. That's something that I really don't think the resiliency fund is something that is a fund that can be utilized by the city with the current restrictions. So I think it probably needs to be modified at least, but I also think that it could probably be eliminated. We have a lot of other measures in place for emergency or resiliency for the city. Another one I had thought of was I don't know exactly what we call it. I wrote it as the Historical Society Task Force. This would be something, and let me tell you how this came up, because going back and looking for older pictures, things that I can remember of Erlanger, sometimes it's difficult to find what a building may have looked at like, or what business might have been in a particular place. Ultimately, I think the goal of this task force would be not really to hone in on the history of Erlanger previously. It would be more so to document the city as it is right now, so that future generations can look back on the history and have good, reliable data, photographs, and documents of where things stand right now in the city. And the last one I would like to request would be the Open Records Task Force. This would be an opportunity to report on the open records that have been requested over the course of a month. Ultimately, trying to track the staff time that's spent on those open records, and assembling, I think really it's just to try to raise awareness of the staff time that's spent on open records requests. We've, since 2018, we've seen a dramatic increase of the open records that are requested each year. I think if I remember correctly, they doubled within 4 years. It went from about 100 open records requests per year to over 200 by 2022. I'm going by memory on this. But we're up to like over 300 open records requests per year. And I think if I remember correctly also, yeah, I mean, we're on track to that number just keeps increasing. So I think it would be good to raise the public's awareness of the task that the city has to produce those open records when it's requested, but also to pay attention to the staff time and evaluate whether we need to be considering adding more staff to pay attention to that or modifying the process. That's all that I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, so for your new ones, do you have the application that you can fill out for me, please? And then I'll review it. And then if you have the vice chair or any participants, you list them on the application. And then we can review them. Okay. Yeah. Either one.
So if they do the open record one, would they be logging what changed at the time in which the spike happened?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's more of like a discussion for the, if there's a task force, they can figure out what their measurables are and discussion can occur inside the group. Yeah.
Does an open records request need to be submitted to determine how many open records requests have been open? Yes. It sounds like you're literally saying that has to be done. I don't think under KRS there's anything that says that there's a limit or a cap, or if you're saying it's for awareness, I mean, that's fine. What I would love is a monthly list of all of the open records requests that have been submitted. I think it'd be awesome to see what's out there, what's being submitted. So maybe as part of the monthly report. I would hate to add anything to staff time to do that, but it sounds like you would be generating that anyway as part of your task force.
Hey, it sounds like you guys want to be on the task force, man. Yes.
I have a lot of comments. So the...
Comments about the task forces?
Yes.
Or do you have your own task forces?
No, I have comments.
Oh.
About Mr. Hermes. I have some suggestions as well related to his task forces.
Okay.
Is that not what we're allowed to do? I mean, are we not all discussing what task forces we think we need or don't need?
Well, I was thinking that you were going to tell me the task forces that you wanted to create.
No, I don't want to create more work for anybody. The Resiliency Task Force, Council has spoken on that fund multiple times. You've tried to get rid of it multiple times. We voted it down every single time. We overrode a veto once. We'll override it again, in my opinion. So I think that's a complete waste of time, but go for it. On the Historical Society Task Force, Erlanger and Ellesmere has a historical society. I'm not sure if you've ever taken the time to attend one of their meetings or presentations, but they're very insightful. They have a ton of data, and the library has a huge archive of photos. And you can literally search by people's names, you can search by addresses. So it sounds like most of the information you're looking for already exists, and it doesn't seem like that is a task force is necessary for that. On the Open Records Task Force, I would like to know where you're getting the statistics from, because that's not anything that's ever been provided to the rest of council as far as the number of open records requests and that there's been an increase or anything like that. I would personally love to see the number. If it's going up every month, then I have questions about that. Why is that? I don't know. That's information that's never been shared with anybody else. I'm not sure where Mr. Hermes got it, but I would be interested to know that. I don't want to create more work for anybody, but state law says we have to do it. So I'm not sure that, I mean, I would like to know the reason, I guess, but at the same time, can we do anything to reduce it? So I don't know that a task force is the accurate way to accomplish that. The only other thing I will say is that the ordinance related to our task forces does specify that there is a minutes template that is supposed to be used for the minutes for all task forces. And to my knowledge, Mr. Hermes has not been using that for the parks minutes for quite some time, because I have asked pretty much for the last year that attendees be listed on the minutes, and he does not include it. And he keeps saying that it's not required by KRS. Well, our own ordinance that we passed says, here's the template. Sherry can send it to you if you need it, but it does have a spot for attendees. So it is supposed to be on there, and I would request that you begin to use the minutes that are actually required by ordinance.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mark?
Just want to provide a little bit of information that I only got just today from somebody in PD, I can't remember who, but we are not unique in our uptrend of open records requests. Police signified today that we are on pace for actually 600 this year. A lot of this, what we are finding is that it is AI generated. One of the KRS requirements to fulfill an open records request to that extent is you got to be a Kentucky resident. There's a loophole in the law right now that even though they provide an address, we cannot verify that address. So even if we know that it's probably AI or it's probably bogus, we cannot verify that, so we still have to fulfill it. That said, I think some of the work that we're talking about as it relates to open records is currently being addressed in this General Assembly. Sherry actually shared with me today from the clerks group. She represents, I think, the legislative arm of that organization, that that group has identified some loopholes in the current KRS. They did just find a bill sponsor for one of the major loopholes that they're trying to close right now at the state level. I do think that that would potentially provide some relief for us, but just wanted to provide that context to council as well.
I have a couple comments as well, too. The Erlanger Ellesmere Historical Society is phenomenal. In fact, I'm a member of it, and I encourage anyone to join. They're constantly seeking out new pictures, old pictures, and I would suggest maybe checking that in and out, and maybe we don't need to have a task force on that. It seems pretty redundant. I would ask to keep the beautification task force, and also a note to the public, when we go a month or two or so with canceling meetings, it's not of anybody's fault. It's just there's nothing new to report, and just sitting there around a table just for the sake of meeting is not respectful of people's time. So just for the public to know, when we do cancel a task force meeting, it's because there's nothing in the pipeline or a lot of events are taking place. For example, in September, summer send-off, that Public Works is busy. So I also want to request from the mayor that during the task force, we do have department heads or representation from that department in attendance so we can ask direct questions. Thank you.
Just to speak to your comments on the Historical Society Task Force that Tyson had explained, what I wrote down was that he wanted to document like the current history. So what I take that as is, so we have the master business listing that Kara has worked tirelessly on, and so has Chrissy. I think it would be an awesome idea if with the master business listing and we have the information, all of our information, we actually have a picture that's associated with that is documenting like how it looks right now. So then we have like, if we're doing an improvement, then we are also then documenting the improvement, and we're showing, did we contribute cap dollars, or did we have some type of small business grant that went into those improvements? So like actually tracking the progress of the business community. I think it would be pretty cool. Like right now we have the new Dairy Queen. Well, did we take a picture of the old Taco Bell so that we can actually have the before and the after of this huge improvement within our community. So I know that you want to, discredit it, but there actually might be some cool pieces to it where we can utilize that on our city website and have like before and after pictures. And, history. I know I get super excited when I come upon a really old picture of the Hive and the house that it used to be, but they're few and far between. So if we had more intention behind it and like documenting who the property owner was, and, instead of having to go through all the property records, if we held that within our own records, I think it'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't think anyone was discrediting the idea, but what you're describing is a database. What Mr. Hermes described was a task force and a historical society, which already exist. What I hear you saying is we need to document all the businesses in Erlanger, which it sounds like we already have that, and photos, which do already exist in some other places. It's consolidating all that data, which I'm not saying is a bad idea. I'm not sure there's a task force that's necessary for that. That's my opinion about it.
Well, and I think one of the really awesome benefits of a task force is that you're having a group of individuals that might not necessarily be staff members that are willing to take on a project to eliminate the work on staff. So, for example, when we did the Heritage Day Revitalization Task Force back a long time ago, that started with community members. Pat Hahn and I sat in the conference room discussing what Heritage Day was, what the awesome pieces of it were that we needed to carry forward to the next, what were we going to rename it? And it started with community members, a lot of council member participation, a few staff members that wanted to be there and felt that there was value to it. And we all came together, we had this task, and we built something together. And the burden on staff was pretty minimal for the most part. Kim participated since the very beginning. And then after, I think it was like 2 years, once the summer send-off was up and running, then it sunsetted. It was done. Like, we had created something beautiful together, and we gave it legs, and then we pass it on. So I do find the task force is valuable for those types of tasks that don't necessarily need to take up staff time, and we do have a group of council members or community members that want to come together to do something special together. So, yes, Ms. Olson.
There is a historic society already in place, and it's the Ellesmere Erlanger Historic Society. And so will this task force be inclusive of what's already in place to enhance what's already taken part with the society?
I don't see why not. It would be a public meeting. Okay. Yeah.
I would like the Small Business Task Force to continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, so those of you that have given me task forces, if you guys can just fill out the application as we've done in the past, just so that we can update. Sherry likes to have updated information. And yes, I'm going to put this one on you, Sherry. She likes to have the updated information so that we have it all nicely in a folder that shows the current task forces and who the contact is. So if you guys can do that for me and please send them to me, I would greatly appreciate it. Okay. All right, last item on the agenda is the Mayor Council Compensation Review. Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so Mark was nice enough to pass out some information, some data that was sent to us from KLC. The sheets in front of you include all the cities of Kentucky, the form of government, the population of the city, and whether the mayor is full-time or part-time, the salary of the mayor, and the salary of the legislative body. So I guess first off, I want to make sure I clarify. I mean, I know on discussion in the agenda, it says the mayor and city council pay. I have no interest in discussing the city council pay. I don't think there's any reason to change the city council pay. I think the mayor pay is what we need to be paying attention to. And again, you know, I can try to reiterate this over and over. This does not have to do with Mayor Fetty. This has to do with the city of Erlanger and what the city is compensating the mayor. There is a summary off to the side of the first page that talks about population range. It says for populations of 100,000 or greater, the average mayor salary is $165,000 and $165,831 per year. For populations of 20,000 to 999,000, it says the average salary of a mayor is $32,584. Now, Erlanger would fall in the $20,000 range, or 20,000 person population range. However, on this list, it's based on the population in 2020, and it shows Erlanger at 19,611 people. The next one down, the next population range down on the summary says 8,000 to 19,999, and it says the average salary of the mayor is $15,000. And that is what we currently pay here in Erlanger. So I'm going to stop there as far as explaining the population range and the average salary of the mayor, because I think there's something that has to be discussed here. I don't know necessarily where they got those numbers, because the numbers are right in front of us. The population range of 100,000 or greater is only two cities in Erlanger, Louisville and Lexington, and the average salary is truly $165,831. However, if you look at the summary of the actual numbers and tally the numbers, for the 20,000 to 999, it says 32,584. However, there are 16 cities that fall in that population range on this sheet. The total of those numbers, this is the way we learned it back in grade school, Jack. The total of all those numbers is 758,168. If you divide that by 16 cities, the actual average salary of the mayors listed there is $47,385. If we look at the data range of 8,000 to 999, or excuse me, 19,999, there are 33 cities listed. However, only 22 of those cities reported what their mayor salary was. If we assume that the report, that it's actually zero, that they pay the mayor zero, and it's it wasn't just unreported. I've got a while to go, so if you want to keep holding your hand up. Okay. Yeah, like I said, there's 33 cities. The total of those numbers is 928,793. Divided by 33, the average salary is 28,145, not 15,000. If we tally just the ones that reported, that's 22, then the average salary is 42,217. So however we slice it here, the salaries are substantially higher than what we are paying here in Erlanger. The purpose of bringing this up is the point of raising the salary would be to send a message that there are real time commitments and executive duties that are required of the position. A low salary conveys the message that it isn't a real job or that there aren't real responsibilities. In my impression, my opinion is that at $15,000 a year, it's borderline a joke. It makes it seem like the mayor is just a figurehead that attends ribbon cuttings and goes around and shakes hands. But in reality, it's a lot more than that already right now in Erlanger. When I was mayor, there was a week when I spent 80 hours on mayor business on top of my regular 40-hour job. But usually, I tracked this over 4 years. Usually, I spent between 40 to 50 hours per week over and above my regular full-time job. Now, some of that stuff was fun stuff. It was going to ribbon cuttings, and it was reading to children at the grade school and things like that. But I counted that all in the time that was taken. That was definitely the minority. The fun stuff was definitely the minority. There was 1 week I had gotten it down to 35 hours per week on top of my regular full-time job. So I think the point is that we all want a qualified, dedicated, hardworking person as mayor, as well as we want those same qualified, dedicated, hardworking people to take interest in running for mayor. The goal would be, honestly, my thought would be to try to get it more toward the averages, to get that salary closer to $50,000 per year, but I definitely don't want to make that jump at one time. I think it's important that we start to make the jump, start to increase the salary at this point, so that eventually, by the time the city is growing to the point where it does need a full-time mayor, that there is full-time salary available. I say full-time. We are still listed as a part-time mayor city. So, my goal would be that we take the money that we saved from cutting council by 3 positions, that $12,000, and put that toward the mayor's salary and make it a $27,000 per year position instead of 15. And I know that the mayor has never asked me to talk about this. She doesn't want me to talk about this because honestly, even at $27,000 a year, it's probably still not, it's not really great compensation for all that you put into this. But again, it's not about you. I'm looking at taking a step toward the future of Erlanger and what we need to be considering as we are growing and moving into the future. Thank you for your time.
I've requested this to be sent to us in Excel so that we can remove the forms of government that are not comparable. so that we can look at the data very similarly to how we did back in 2019 when this was originally discussed. So I'd have to dig more into it before I could gather even remotely an opinion on the topic, and whether or not it's appropriate, and this is also based off of 2020 data. So we're still in arrears, but I think our data last time was like 2016 or 2015, so. Okay, the headings are all cut off, so I'm not even able to work with this information until I have it. Thank you.
First, I want to make a couple comments. I think it's very disrespectful to request a mayor's salary without also including council. We have a lot of council members that work very hard, and they do it because they want to. I also think that this is not a good idea to request an increase in mayor or council pay on an election year. If this would be something you would want to bring back up, I think a non-election year, and then if it passes, it would go through the next council and the next mayor. I think this should have been brought up last year. If we were thinking about it, it might have made a difference in getting more people to run for positions. Obviously, we don't run for these positions for the money. We do it because our heart is in the right place for the city. So I propose we don't do any further discussing on this unless it's a non-election year. Thank you.
Just for clarification, Diana, it doesn't go into effect until after an election, so it doesn't have any impact on this.
I am
That's
aware
why I'm saying it's not about.
I am aware it would go in effect to 2027, correct?
Correct.
Right, and I'm aware that I think it shouldn't go to the next term because a lot of us are still running for offices, and I just don't think it's appropriate for us to discuss increasing. And I think if a mayor's under review for an increase in pay, so should council as well. So I'm just asking, since we have an election year coming up, this, if it's going to be brought back up, discussed next year to where it would go in effect in 2 years, the next council, in 4 years, the next mayor's election is what my recommendation would be, because I also think that if we're talking about raising the salary, we might have got more people that would have been interested in running for mayor or councilor to be on the ballot before we close, before the ballot listings were closed on January 9th.
I'd also like to see the data for how many of these cities have a full-time city administrator, an assistant city administrator, director of public safety, as well as all of the other department heads like chiefs. Because if it is a situation where they don't have all of that, then they definitely have earned more money, but we have specifically set up our city in a way in which the people we hire with the training does that, and that's why we have a part-time mayor. It's because we have an entire team to help associate with that.
Yeah.
I won't be providing that. I mean, if you want to know that, you can research it. Okay.
Yes.
If you won't be providing it, then I won't be voting on it. I was just going to say that there's mayors listed on here that don't have even a city clerk, and they make less than what our current mayor does. So there's a lot of information that's not on this spreadsheet. And if you don't want to provide it, that's fine, but you're asking us to make a decision, and we asked for data to support the decision that you're asking us to make, and now you're telling us you won't give us the data that we feel like we need. If you don't want to give it to us, that's fine. I won't be moving forward on any increases.
I guess my question would be, if you guys are interested in that particular data, why wouldn't you seek it out and do the research in order to make an educated decision?
I am making an educated decision. I don't think there needs to be an increase. He's the one asking us to make a change, and he's not willing to provide us with the data that supports that change, in my opinion. So I'm not going to make a decision based on incomplete data.
Yep.
I guess I would just remind that this is a caucus meeting, and this is the first time we're really having the opportunity to discuss this. I did bring this back. I brought this up, I don't remember when it was, November or December. And, there was a caucus meeting we didn't have in the meantime. So, I mean, this is the beginning of the discussion. And, I guess I want to be mindful of my time as well. If this is something that council is not interested in, I don't want to spend a lot of time researching a bunch of stuff just for council to say no, regardless. I have a feeling that it wouldn't really necessarily matter how much data we provided or how much compelling evidence we provided. I mean, I think that the stuff that I reviewed is pretty comparable and pretty compelling. But if you want to ignore that, then that's your choice. I guess I take into consideration something that my dad told me, and that was, don't take criticism from somebody that you wouldn't ask advice of. And so I'm going to go ahead and still proceed with, trying to draft whatever it takes and let this council vote it down if that's what they choose.
Yes.
You provided us data that had no source. I have no idea where this data came from. You basically read us what we could have analyzed ourselves. And there's, like Ms. Recker said, there's incomplete headings. We can't even tell, I don't even know when the data is from. And as we said, there's a lot of information that's not included on here. Some of these cities don't have what we do. So there's just so much more to it than this. And that's what we're asking for. That's what we're saying. I mean, at the minimum, I need to know where this came from, because anybody can create a spreadsheet with whatever they want on it. So I don't know where this came from. I'm assuming KLC, but I don't know that because there's no source listed.
If you go back and watch the tape, you'll hear me say that this was provided by KLC.
We'll send it out to you guys. It's an Excel spreadsheet that KLC sent.
I was going to say, when we evaluated this a couple years ago, we removed all the forms of government that were not our form of government, and we removed full-time mayors. If we could just see that data, unfiltered, unedited, that would be super helpful, and then we can make an informed decision. I don't think, and in that deck, I recall back when we looked at this in 2019, they had that information about city clerks and things of that nature too. I don't know if that was included in this package. If not, it's not to the detriment of the, I mean, I think we can make an informed decision off of the information if we can sort out the forms of government that aren't comparable and have a conversation about it. Do we want to take this to the next caucus meeting? Would that work, Mr. Hermes? All right.
Can we get an updated org chart too?
Right. Any other questions? Okay. Do I entertain a motion that we adjourn? Ms. Reckers, Ms. Wilson, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Have a good evening.